Hey everybody, I'm John and this is Blind Whiskey Reviews. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today here on Blind Whiskey Reviews, the most honest reviews on YouTube. As always, if you're liking these videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below so you know every time I'm putting out a new video and every time I'm starting a new live stream. You're also probably going to want to hit that bell notification so you can get notifications on your phone so you know when those things are coming. Today, I'm very happy to be reviewing a very cool whiskey for you. This is the Limousin Rye by Dancing Goat Distillery. As you can probably tell, I didn't purchase this at the store. This was sent to me by the distillery, so thank you very much to Travis over at Dancing Goat. He was kind enough to send this cool packaging over, so we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video, but without further ado, let's jump back in time and get to the review. All right, everybody, let's get into the whiskey. For the color, this one is a very, very light straw color. Not very dark at all. Not really sticking to the glass. Thin legs. Doesn't look like it's kind of grabbing onto that glass very well. On the nose, this one's got a very interesting nose. At first I'm kind of hit with like a very strong like floral character. It smells like fresh flowers. It's got an almost young note to it, kind of like a green grassy note. Definitely some herbal characters in there. A little bit of baking spice, like the herbal characters are more like sage or rosemary. I mean, maybe there is the slightest hint of dill in there, maybe? So maybe we've got rye here. It's a very different nose. This is very unlike anything I think I've smelled before. Anyways, let's get off this nose and let's get into the taste. Cheers. Very interesting on the palate. Tastes a bit different than the nose would lead you to believe. I thought it was going to taste a little bit more green than it does. It's definitely more rounded. Has a bit of caramel to it. Definitely some spice there. Sweet floral notes. There is a hint of almost I don't know, like I've tasted it in Scotch before where it's almost like when they've aged it with like virgin oak. There's almost that kind of character to it. Where it's got that kind of like raw, woody character. Not the charred wood that a bourbon kind of would give you, but a raw wood character. I think that's where this like green note is kind of coming from, maybe. There is the slightest touch of caramel. There's a slightest like hint of vanilla there. Definitely a little spice. There's almost a wine-like character too, like a white wine-like character at points here. And I've tasted that before in Scotch, and this doesn't taste like Scotch, but okay, so there's almost like this white wine character to it. It's a very interesting whiskey. There's a lot of things going on. They're things that are a bit out of my normal wheelhouse, so I don't know how to feel about them. But it's definitely got some complexity. It's definitely got some flavors going on there. Like I said, there's not my normal wheelhouse here. I'm liking what's going on. I'm just a little bit maybe baffled by it. Perplexed, maybe is a great word for it. I definitely got some like green apple notes. Like I said, there's definitely that green woody character. Definitely a little bit of caramel. Definitely lots of spice on the back. Very interesting whiskey. I'll give it that. I don't know how to feel about it necessarily because, like I said, these flavors are much, much different than what I would say I'm used to. I feel like this is probably a rye whiskey, just based on the amount of spice I'm getting, the slight touch of dill, and some of these other flavors I got going. But it's definitely not your normal rye whiskey. I mean, something else is going on here. I couldn't quite tell you what it is. As far as the proof, got a relatively long finish too. I'm sitting here and it's still developing a little more. Nice, light, sweet floral characters on the tongue, apple, fruit characters. You're not left with a ton of the spice. There's a hint of it, but you got some. It's a nice balance. I like what's going on. Like I said, a little bit perplexing because it's very unique. Mouthfeel is about a medium. Proof-wise, I feel like we're maybe in that 90-95 ballpark. It's not hot, drinks pretty well. It's not harsh. Age-wise, I don't even know where to begin on age because, like I said, I'm getting like these young green notes, and I don't know if they're green notes. Like I said, it's just like this young wood note. I don't know what it is. So I don't even want to try to attempt a guess on age because I really have no clue. Let's add a couple drops of water and see if that maybe can coax out something here. I'm really interested to find out what this is. Like I said, it's very, very unique, very different. I wouldn't say it changed too much on the nose. Same kind of floral and fruity characters predominantly. Just lightened it up on the palate. Kind of same as it was before, just a little bit lighter. I prefer it neat. So, as for a rating on this one, take this one with a grain of salt. Like I said, I'm more baffled by what's going on here just because it's so different than what I normally review and what I normally taste. I like it. I think it's very interesting. I mean, if you're just going based on the things that I normally look for, normally in a whiskey, I want complexity. This definitely has a lot of complexity. There's a lot of different flavor components going on here. They're not the flavors I normally taste, but there's definitely several of them. So I think it does well in complexity. Mouth feels good. The amount of flavor is good compared to the burn you're getting. So I think you got a decent amount of flavor for what the proof I think it is. Like I said, I feel it's like in that 90-95 range. Don't even have an attempt to guess on age. I just don't know. So I'm going to give this one, again, grain of salt. I'm going to give it an 84. And realistically, this is more, it could be higher, it could be lower. I just don't know what to think about it. Like I said, it's just a very, very unique whiskey here. I do think it's a rye based on the flavor components that I'm tasting and the amount of spice and dill, but we'll see. What do we got? This is Dancing Goat Distillery Limousin Rye. All right, well, let's go grab that bottle and we'll talk about it a little bit more. All right, everybody, we just finished our review of the Limousin Rye from Dancing Goat. This is a whiskey distilled from rye mash, and this is bottled at 47% alcohol. So that would be what, 94 proof? So we were pretty close on the proof. I think I said 90 to 95, so you're right in the wheelhouse there. It is barrel aged with French oak staves. So, and it also says in the back of the bottle that it is aged a minimum of 3 years in vintage American oak barrels and finished in the world's rarest oak from the Limousin forest in France. What any of that means, I don't really know. But From what I've read on this whiskey, I believe they use some kind of Solera process to age this, but apparently it's at a minimum of at least a 3-year-old whiskey, and it's also aged in new and used oak barrels. So I think I said that when I was reviewing, is that it has that kind of grassy young bite, but it didn't taste like a young whiskey. It just had a bite of that, a little hint of that kind of grassy flavor. And I remember tasting that in one of the scotches I reviewed. And that scotch, excuse me, maybe it was like the Tomatin scotch, where it was aged in bourbon barrels, but it was also aged in new oak barrels as well, I believe. And it kind of had that bite to it, just that new oak bite that you get when you put a whiskey into a barrel that hasn't been charred. And I'm assuming that it hasn't been charred. That's just kind of the vibe that I get from it. It just doesn't have, excuse me, that charry feel to it. It just has that bitey kind of new wood taste to it, green wood taste to it. And I found that very interesting in this whiskey because it gave it a hint of youngness to it, but it definitely had some flavors to it that felt like it had some character to it as well. Like I mentioned in the review, this whiskey has a ton of complexity. There's a lot going on, but it's just very much outside the normal wheelhouse of like American rye whiskey. So I thought it was pretty cool. I was a little bit baffled on how to rate it because it's just so unique and so far outside what I would normally experience with a rye whiskey. So I would definitely like to circle back to this one in a few months, throw this into the re-review pile at some point, and kind of see how I feel about it then, because I think this is one of those whiskeys that you can appreciate a bit more when you know what you're drinking. I've kind of experienced that with a few whiskeys I've reviewed on this channel. I think the Lock, Stock, and Barrel 18-year-old rye was a good example of that, which is I was baffled by it when I drank it, and when I found out what it was, it all kind of made sense. I kind of could make sense out of what I was tasting, and it clicked in my head as I'm tasting this because the reason I'm tasting these flavors is because it was aged this way, or it's this old, or whatever the case may be. So I think this is kind of falls in that wheelhouse. So you'll probably enjoy it more when you know what it is, because when you're drinking it blind, it's a little bit perplexing because it's very, very unique. But I think it is actually really good whiskey. So again, this was provided by the distillery. Thank you guys so much for saying this. I will say by far, out of any whiskey I've received from a distillery, from a media kit or samples that they've sent, this is by far the coolest packaging I've seen. This is a nice, solid wood box they sent over with some cool engraving on the front. So you guys do a great job. Thank you so much, Travis and Dancing Goat, for sending this over. I really appreciate you guys. I can't wait to try this whiskey again in a re-review. And I'll probably be able to pick it out because, like I said, it's very unique. But I'd love to see what it does with a little bit of time, because as I mentioned in the review, this bottle's been open for all of 5 minutes. So when I'm drinking it, I definitely want to see what happens to this whiskey when it has some airtime and have a little bit of time to open up and develop, because it's very complex. I definitely think that airtime might kind of help mingle some of these flavors and change things a bit and make it a cool experience. So anyways, if you've tried this whiskey from Dancing Goat, Limousin Rye, leave it in the comment. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about it. And as always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at blind_reviews. You can send me an email at blindwhiskeyreviews@gmail.com. And until next time, cheers.